Hey everyone, Morrigan here. So today I was thinking of trying out this paint set from Lidl. It's by a company named Crelando. Oh, and stickers. Yay! So anyways, I bought this from Lidl and I'm wondering if maybe this is Lidl's in-house brand? Who knows? And yeah, I'm showing off here. Here's the brush and they do look a little odd for watercolors, these paints. Sponge is a sponge. They come in these little chiclets. Yeah, my sketchbook is in 2 pieces. So I just used this old sketchbook of mine to try out the colors. Here I am revetting the paint. They look so pretty though. But the moment that you put water to it, they immediately light up. And I guess that just means that there's a lot of brighteners in there. So here I am trying to swatch them. And I found that they need quite some time to revet properly. And much later in the video, I will also discover that they somehow get used up very fast as well. By the end of this video, at least 2 of these paints will have a serious dent in them. And we will only create 2 paintings and a few doodles. Again, the swatches are not so nice. I shouldn't have even bothered. This paper really doesn't do much justice to any paint, quite frankly. On the cover, it says that it's suitable for watercolors, and technically it is. But if it is, then so is cardboard. So anyways, these will be the 2 sketchbooks that I'll try to paint in. One of which is from Teddy, and it's from a company named Einhorn. The other one is from Clairefontaine. This character is really just a plushy keychain that I had laying around, although I did modify the design quite a bit. I added a little scarf and a magical little hat to go with it. I was kind of in the mood for Christmas, to be frank. Very festive. And I kind of used the Crelando pencils here too, but I did not make a video about that, simply because this video was already like 20 minutes long. But yeah, these are just little doodles. Later we will get into 2 much bigger illustrations that took me quite some time to make. Oh yeah, the shadow looks like a puddle, not going to lie, but at this point my impressions of these paints are rather good. I like how the colors came out. They're not nearly as muddy or pale or chalky as I feared they would be, but this is actually pretty good paper that I'm putting them on. And there is a little foxy that was inspired by one of those stickers that I just showed off like twice already. So yeah, they're not as chalky, but the paper is pretty alright. I quite like this paper at least. And this is quite a budget paper still. This is from Clairefontaine and it's not 100% cotton, it's 100% cellulose. But it's pretty cheap and I quite like it how usually my paintings turn out on them. And here I'm just doodling. This is a fantasy flower, it's not a real flower. I made it up as I went. Here there is this wonderful tree that I'm sketching up too. It's just a tree. It's a referenceless tree. I guess I was doing it because I wasn't so great at trees and as you can see, I did not improve in this attempt. Maybe a bit later. Oh, and that was supposed to be a rock, but I abandoned it. Okay, so this is how they look like after the fact. And I was wondering at this point, they look a little sus. Do you know what they remind me of? Gouache dries like that. It also cracks like gouache and it looks grainy and gritty like gouache. So here I am again. Just freehanding mountains, and frankly, I did not look up any references and it will show. The struggle is going to be very real very soon. So here I'm just wetting the surface to try to create softer edges. Here I go. And I would like to point out that my color selection was not all that great either. So here I'm trying to create this misty feeling by dabbing some tissue paper to soak up the excess paint. And here I'm trying to render the mountain. This is a separate day from when I was doodling the foxy do and the tree. This day I was really not in a good headspace. I will be very, very transparent about that. So I was really struggling mentally, and as artists always do, I escaped into my art. But unfortunately it showed. But I, for some reason, again, this is really not my day, I just cannot get my head around the shapes that I'm putting down. It's odd. I usually don't have a problem with this, but I guess it really does go to show that when you're not quite on a good day mentally, it's really coming across in your art. It is. I can see myself not doing well. But on the bright side, it was a really welcome distraction from all the things that were going on at the time. So I am actually very thankful for this painting, even though it is not my favorite. I do treasure it still. Anyways, you can already see that it's drying quite chalky. The paper that's being used here is a much better paper than the other two that I was showing off before. The one from Teddy's for like €2 and Clairefontaine, which is better, but this one, the one that I'm painting on right now, these mountains, this is 100% cotton, cold press. It's named Baohong, which is really good. It is my favorite paper to paint on. So whatever is happening that you're seeing in front of you is either me or the paint, but mostly me. I mean, sure, if I could have done a better job at rendering, maybe this could have worked. But for some reason, these paints, they're both very difficult and very easy to lift. I know it sounds odd, but it's true. For example, you'll see that colder green for the trunk and the much warmer green for the actual rest of the tree. They don't quite mix well. But if you layer these paints too much and then you start to come on top with something that's wet, all the layers will come up. Like you're left, even after like 5 layers, you're left with a white spot, which is the paper showing through. The tiny little trees. And as you can see, I completely given up on the brush that came with the set, but I quite like these paints. The brush though, the brush had this infuriating habit of sucking up the paint that was on the brush into the water reserve, thus muddying the paint. You were guaranteed to paint mud with that brush, so I eventually had to ditch it. Oh yeah, so here I'm trying to bring in the colors of the trees into the mountains to achieve some sort of a cohesion, at least in colors, and perhaps that was somewhat successful, but later on I will just go ahead and add more and more stuff. Ever since 2 years ago, I completed Inktober and I've realized that my panic button is redundancy. I'll explain what I mean. If a piece doesn't go well, I'll just start to overwhelm it with unnecessary details. So here I'm trying to redefine the clouds. I find it useful to note that when you're rendering skies, you should do it so that the top is darker than towards the horizon line. That's going to help give it perhaps a bit more realistic feel. And yeah, these clouds are not my best either, but I like the trees that I added here at the end. So here I'm trying to save it by redefining certain edges, but it's just not clicking. I'm really doing it so that I can see them better and I can understand the structure better, but I just don't. I'm not seeing, I'm not feeling. And also the outlines are so odd. Who has seen mountains shaped quite like that? Oh, and look at the washi tape just melting right off. At least something worked out that day. And now we're peeling it off of the block, and here's the final piece. But they do have that gritty quality about them that at least I associate with gouache paint. And by the way, here the original idea was to just paint a cozy little ocean with a sandy beach, and that's it. What it turned out to be, however, again, this is just a few days after the mountains, and I was not happy with life still. So I channeled all my anger and frustration into what shaped up to be, as you can see form in the background, to be a tornado. So now you can see me actually taking advantage of the fact that, as you can tell, at this point I'm very suspicious that these paints are in fact gouache. I mean, they kind of act like one. They also have that grittiness too. And here comes the tornado. What should I say? I've drawn and painted quite a few tornadoes in the past weeks. In fact, I've somewhat recently even saw a dream involving tornadoes. I dreamt that I was in my room and I looked out the window and there was not one, not two, but 3 entire tornadoes. And that makes sense because I had about 3 major problems in my life at that point. And by the way, where I live, we never get tornadoes, so this is guaranteed to be some sort of a symbol. And here I'm actually having fun. That's actually the difference between the mountain painting and this one. That actually they're both without references, unguided, and just impromptu. But I'm actually having a lot of fun with the second one, the tornado one. Doing its casual tornado things, I guess. Going into this painting at the beginning, I thought that, what the hell? If it doesn't turn out great, I will just not include it in the video. So I allowed myself to play a little. Besides, bad art days, bad art weeks, bad art months, they happen to everyone. It's not just me, so I better get over myself and just embrace it. It's fine, it's part of life. There's nothing to hide and there's nothing to be ashamed about. And it's okay to share the difficult times as well. But what you're watching right now is not actually the difficult times. I'm actually having a blast at the moment. And just how gritty the paint looks around the clouds. You see it? It looks rough. And then I'll move on and have a fight with it for several minutes and then eventually give up. First I'll try to fight it and then try to lean into it. I will see no success with either approaches and just give up and embrace it. So here I'm trying to get some saturation in at least. I tend to be quite flat with my colors in my painting, so here I'm trying to take the opportunity to improve on that. So yeah, I have a very love and hate relationship with these paints. First things first, they got me through some pretty difficult times, but also perhaps they're not the best. I think it was around this moment, by the way, when I realized, completely convinced myself that these must be dried out gouache. I was suspicious before, again, I made mention of it several times, but I think this was the moment where I was absolutely sure, as those clouds started to dry the way they did with that grittiness. And look, I do have very cheap paint. I have paint so cheap that it's less than $1 or less than €1, whichever you use. So you're talking the cheapest of the cheap that has ever cheaped. I mean, the cheap ones are usually much paler and chalkier, but they don't quite soak through the way these Crelando watercolors do. I'm being very, very suspicious that these paints just maybe dried out gouache. Maybe some sort of a byproduct of gouache making. Maybe these are the accidentally dried out parts whilst manufacturing gouache. I don't know. I don't work in a factory with paint, so I cannot truly tell. But I think these are gouache. I think these are gouache paints. Oh, and there's the white paint. So at this point I thought that, okay, I think this is gouache. Let's use it, like gouache. And look how well it worked. It actually worked wonderfully. Again, they're not beating my allegations, these paints. So yeah, I'm using the white paint here, and it's working out wonderfully. Although later I will use a white gel pen, and I kind of regret it now. I think I just went way overboard with that. I should have left just a few speckles and that should have been it. Oh, and here are some close-ups of how well the white worked. So yeah, the white paint looks wonderful here. I'm actually very happy with it. So yeah, I think these paints would be really good for those in-betweener artists. You know, the ones who will use watercolor and paint sometimes? Obviously, this would not be your main material because this is very cheap, these Crelando paints. But for mock-ups, for practice, for sketchbook, I think these paints could hold quite a bit of value for those artists who like to use their gouache sometimes as watercolor and sometimes as gouache. So yeah, I kind of like these paints, and that white is really working well. And yeah, here I'm rendering the waves. Yeah, I'll be very honest, this is my first time really rendering waves, and I don't know, at this point I'm doing well, I think, but then I'll go ahead with the gel pen and just overdo it. But yeah, at this point it looks great. But yeah, first time rendering waves, and I actually had fun. I think they turned out fine. Oh, and here it comes, the Touch Cool white gel pen that I will absolutely overuse. I got it from the orange side that must not be named. Anyhow, but they worked great. It worked great. Again, I overdid it with the white gel pen, but I don't care, I had fun. I'm really looking forward to try to do these again. Hopefully with a bit less heavy-handed with the white gel pen. And oh, here comes the ripples. Yeah, at this point I actually ended up looking up a few references. And the reference had ripples. And after I was done doing the ripples with the white gel pen, I realized that, man, I should have just used the Crelando white that was included in the set. These are way too intense. Those ripples should have been subdued looking, not these intensive harsh lines. So yeah, I goofed there. Oh yeah, and the white was contaminated by yellow that was right next to it. That's why it's not showing up on this second wave. But do not worry, I'll come in hot and I'll overwork it again and you'll see just precisely where it all is. So right up after the mountains, the second painting too turned out to be one of those that do not look like one of my best, but holds a very, very special place in my heart. I mean, I had fun. I was painting this, and as the tornado started to genuinely look like dogtooth, I was actually having a good laugh. Also, the waves at some point, it looked like peaches, let's just say. I corrected that after a while, but yeah, this painting is doing everything right now. And of course, I completely forgot using washi tape because, again, the idea for this painting came so abruptly and I was completely ready to just not include it in this video. So I will actually have to manually cut off the sides. So yeah, coming in with the gel pen one last time. Come on, no, that's too strong to smudge. Lay off the gel pen, girl. Oh, okay, that's the end. Okay, that's it. So here is the end result. That's not a very good picture. Yeah, so here are the other tornadoes. That's tornado much better than the tornado that I made just now. And here I go. There's the latest edition. It's really not the best entry. And there's another tornado that looks a bit better for a tornado than the rest. Don't look at the way I render the grass because, oh my gosh. So do you see how gritty that looks? Even on the palette. And look at the big dent in the blue. Do you see it? The third from the bottom. And the white as well. Dude, this was only 2 paintings. This is only 2 paintings worth. Oh yeah, and here I'm showing you, I did this off screen. But do you see how gritty it looks? It's gritty and just rough looking. So that's what I'm trying to show you here. Okay, they got it. Put it away. Okay, so thank you for coming with me on this journey. Thank you for watching. And I hope that you had a great day and you'll also paint. Have a great day. Goodbye.